Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ike's Political Minute. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. And let's get to it. We are going to be forecasting the 2024 presidential race between Joe Biden and Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina. And I think Tim Scott has his strengths and his weaknesses. He is a very much Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush kind of Republican in that he's charismatic, energetic, and he focuses on a message of positivity and optimism. I think that will resonate with a lot of voters. But what you also have to understand is that Republicans want a fighter. They want someone who will really go out and stick it to the Democrats. And Tim Scott might leave the GOP base a little deflated in that sense, especially when it comes to social issues. He's come out to defend Black Lives Matter on multiple occasions. So I think that especially could be a big liability for Scott. So anyway, let's see how this plays out on a national stage. So first, I'm going to fill out the states that I think Biden would win safely. I think the West Coast would all land squarely in his column, as well as Illinois and the Northeastern Corridor. Yep, Vermont, very safe. It voted for Bernie. And let's see, Maine's first, safe blue. And also, Maine at large would go to Biden by, I believe, a likely margin. And Scott would win the second congressional district narrowly. I just don't think that he would have as strong of an appeal to the voters there. And I think Tim Scott would hold down the Rocky Mountain and Plains states, with the exception of Nebraska's second congressional district. And I don't know. I think that he could do well in the Texas suburbs. I think that his message of positivity would overall resonate there. I'd say he wins it by a likely margin, and he would definitely hold down the South, with the notable exception of Georgia and North Carolina. I think that those would be more narrow. I think that Tim Scott would win also Alaska by a safe margin, but he would win both Georgia and North Carolina by lean margins. I think that even though those states have generally been trending away from the Republicans, he would definitely have a strong appeal to suburban voters in both states with his message of positivity. He would be able to appeal to African American voters, which are a large voting bloc in both states, and be able to lock those down. Now, Florida is the home of Republicans like Ron DeSantis, of Republicans like Donald Trump, and Floridians like fighters. They like someone who will go out and rail against socialism and really beat the Democrats. And for that reason, I mean, I think it's possible Tim Scott wins it by over 5 points. I mean, Trump won it by over 3 in 2020, but for now, I'm going to put it in lean. I just don't think that his milquetoast sense would really be as strong to voters there. And Scott also obviously wins Indiana by a safe margin. And because Scott just generally wouldn't appeal to that Trump fighter base, I actually think that he wins Ohio and Iowa only by lean margins. I mean, maybe Joe Biden could even come close to winning those states, but just because of how far they've moved from the Democrats, they stay in the Republican column. Because of his suburban appeal and just in general ability to connect with minorities, I think he would win Arizona. I think he would win it by a lean margin, kind of the way that Karen Taylor Robinson would have if she had defeated Kari Lake to become the Republican gubernatorial nominee. And also, Nevadans just generally like libertarians who are opposed to any kind of big governments, to that kind of encroachment, and right wingers, as long as they don't go super Trumpian like Adam Laxalt. So I think that Scott wins it narrowly. I do think that, however, Joe Biden would lock down the states of Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia just because of how far those states have moved from the Republicans. And I think that the Rust Belt is where Scott's weaknesses really would be made manifest. I think that he would lose Nebraska's second congressional district by a likely margin. I think Minnesota actually goes to Joe Biden by a safe margin. I mean, Scott Jensen did not do well there. I think Biden wins Wisconsin by a lean margin, Michigan actually by a likely margin, and Pennsylvania by a lean margin as well. And yeah, I think that with New Hampshire, I mean, just so you guys know, the last New Hampshire has been considered a swing state, but the last time it was actually ever won by a Republican was by George W. Bush in the 2000 election. that was actually what made the key difference between whether or not Al Gore won. And George W. Bush was a compassionate conservative. He focused on that more positive side of conservatism and was able to build a bridge with minorities. And I think that for Tim Scott would be able to do those exact same things. He is that kind of candidate. So I'm going to say that he wins New Hampshire by a tilt margin. So there it is, a very close presidential election that hinges on the states of Nevada and New Hampshire. Tim Scott will ultimately become the next president of the United States, despite largely losing the Rust Belt. Thank you all for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all later.